Yo, what's up, everyone? Welcome to something I haven't done actually in a really long time here on the channel. Just an old school, straight ahead question and answer live stream. Thanks for joining. If you're new, well, like I said, it's been a while since I've done one of these. So we'll give everyone a second to file in here. Quick announcement. There's a sale going on today. 30% off of everything in my store if you use the code RS30 at checkout. That's the tone course, the HELIX presets, KEMPER profiles, the IRs, basically everything in there. You can get 30% off. So check that out. I've got the chat pulled up here. If you want to ask a question, you can @ me at Rhett Shull in the chat. That'll highlight it so I can see it. Or you can leave a top chat. That helps as well. Highlight your question. So as was tradition on these Q&A live streams, let me know where you're tuning in from. I like knowing where everybody's watching from. No Dipped in Tone tonight. Actually, there should be a Dipped in Tone podcast coming out today. You gotta give Zach some time. You know, he's working on this thing pretty much himself. So yeah, it should be coming out later today. This let's see here. Yeah, this week's episode of Dipped in Tone is kind of all over the place, but yeah. All right, Justin coming in with the first top chat question here: fuzz face, tone bender, or weirdo fuzz? All right, so if you're gonna do one fuzz, I think one fuzz to rule them all. I think the fuzz face or the tone bender is a good option to start with, one of the two. I think depending on what fuzz face circuit it is and depending on who does it, if you're somewhat new to fuzz, you can it's sort of like the easiest gateway drug into fuzz. I think the fuzz face is, because you know, if it's like a classic late 60s fuzz face, like the Dunlop, like the Hendrix reissues and things like that, they're actually pretty tame. I have one over here I should grab and show you guys. Let's see here. So the Greuter Moonlight, this is his, he does two. This is his fuzz face one, and then there's a tone bender one. I've had this one for a while, and this is a really good, I think, entry level. When I say entry level, I don't mean cheap or inexpensive. I mean like easiest to get into kind of fuzz, because it actually works great as an overdrive. It does some good clean boost-ish kind of sounds. If you roll your volume knob off, it cleans up really well. So yeah, if you're new to fuzz, I'd say fuzz face. But with all that said, I'm a big tone bender fan. Big tone bender fan. Yeah. And then weirdo fuzzes, I probably wouldn't recommend. If you're only going to have one fuzz, I wouldn't go with a weirdo fuzz to start with, because they're kind of niche. They're not great for everything. So, you know. Doug, followed your channel first time on live chat. What would be your dream guitar? Thanks. Appreciate that, Doug. So I'm really lucky. I pretty much have my dream guitar. It's my Burgundy Mist Novo Ceres J, the pink sparkle guitar. I bought that guitar about 3.5 years ago from Righteous, and it is my one kind of do it all. Although I do have I've got this Wide Sky over here now that I've absolutely fallen in love with. That guitar, if you're not familiar with Wide Sky, you should check him out. Patch out in Taos, New Mexico. They're phenomenal. I'll pull this ad off here. Yeah, the Wide Sky is really great. It's completely different than anything else I have. But if I was gonna have one guitar for the rest of my life, it would be my Ceres J. Burst of Tone, thanks for top chat. Thoughts on the Sir SL68 Handwired amp? I haven't played the 68 very much, so I can't really speak to that amp specifically. I do know that Sir makes really good amps. The Ombre they just came out with, that I believe is like a Tweed Deluxe kind of thing, is really, really good. And from what I understand, guys like Pete Thorne really love the SL series. They're, kind of Plexi series. I think John Sir knows what he's doing when it comes to that amp. So I've heard good things. Haven't spent a ton of time playing one, though. I've briefly played one at Righteous a few times, but it's yeah. I feel to really get the feel of an amp, you have to live with it for a while. It's the same thing with guitars, right? Like when you're playing a guitar at a shop, you don't really get the ins and outs of it, and you don't really learn what the guitar is or learn its voice. I think you kind of have to live with it for a while. I think amps are the same way. Brian, saw you tune into that pedal show earlier today. No question, just support. I appreciate that, man. Loving the Nathan Drake Uncharted cosplay. Yeah. I was out running errands today, so this is my my mask situation. Let's see here. David asks, any plans on doing presets or patches for the Pod Go? Yeah, you know what? I need to get on that. I am, as soon as this live stream is done, I'm going to be working on, you can see over my my shoulder here, my HELIX is turned on. See, right there. There it is. I'm working on something special for that, for line 6 right now. So, yeah, I do need to get some Pod Go stuff going on. Although the thing about the Pod Go that I find it's I have one and I've played it a little bit. I just find myself going towards the HX Stomp more than the Pod Go. I think if you're in the market, I think the Stomp is the better way to go, but I know a ton of people have bought the Pod Go, so let's see here. Sean in the top chat, for a PAF tone, how do you feel about the Dimarzio 36th anniversary PAF? Cheers from Chicago. So I've never owned Dimarzio PAFs. I have owned Dimarzio Strat pickups in the past. I think Dimarzios are really good value for money. Are they the best sounding or most authentic PAFs out there? Probably not. But, you know, the thing that I learned about the PAFs recently when I did that video last week, talking to John from Throwback, was, and after I heard him say it, it made a lot of sense to me. A good PAF is almost like a good P90, just on steroids, right? And I didn't know this until I interviewed him for the video. He told me that the way the PAF was originally designed was based off of the P90. It was almost like a double coil P90 sort of design. So I think that's part of why I love PAF so much. So what I look for in a good PAF is a little bit more. It's like a P90 just with an extra 20%, if that makes sense. Like a little more bottom end, a little more present mid-range, and a little more sparkly top end than a P90. And I think Dimarzio can certainly do that for the money. It just depends on what you're looking for, you know? If you want the most authentic recreation, like down to the right plastic and the bobbin and the right wire and everything, companies like Throwback are good for that. I think companies like Wiz are good for that. I think the ones that Echo Park is doing, the Goldie PAFs are really good for that. Brandon Wound, there's plenty of people out there. Lawler, I mean, there's a lot of really good people out there. Fralin as well. I mean, everyone, well, not everyone, but a lot of people make really good PAFs, you know. Bubba in the top chat. Oh, I lost it. Hold on. Let's see here. Big Muff? Question mark. Still part of my 30-year setup. Comfortable 30-plus old friend. Just a little noisy. Just found you on Hendrix Day. Simply masterful. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, if you guys didn't see the Backstage live stream this weekend, it's up. You guys can go check it out. We had a ton of fun. I think that's our best sounding set we've played yet as a band. I do like the Big Muff. The only... Actually, this... So I don't have like a Big Muff proper, like a proper Big Muff, but I have this. This is the Jam Red Muck. Let me... There we go. Turn on my autofocus here. So the Jam Red Muck... Although I just turned on my autofocus. There it goes. So this is a really interesting take on a Big Muff. This will definitely get you into like that Billy Corgan Smashing Pumpkins territory. Really, really cool. Cleans up pretty well for a Big Muff circuit. And it's a lot smaller, a lot more pedal board friendly than like a typical Russian Big Muff. I love it though, man. I would like to have a real deal like Russian Big Muff at some point in the near future. But yeah, put it on the list. Logan, would you recommend a mono gig bag for a Les Paul? That's a really good question. So no, I wouldn't. So I have when I'm traveling under normal circumstances, whether I'm flying or on tour or whatever, I'm pretty much always using mono gig bags. I've used them for years. I've used them years before being on YouTube and everything like that. Full disclosure, I do have a relationship with mono now. So, you know, take that with a grain of salt, if you will. But I genuinely like their stuff. I've used it for years. The problem with a Les Paul in a mono bag, at least the ones that I have, is the neck block isn't quite far enough so it doesn't keep the headstock off the back of the case. So when the Les Paul's in the gig bag, the very top of the Les Paul's headstock is pressing against the back of the gig bag, which makes me a little nervous. If the bag were to fall backwards, like where the shoulder straps are, I am a little nervous that it would transfer sorry, it would transfer a lot of that energy into the headstock. And so that's why I have one of those SKB molded Les Paul cases, and that's what I use. If I take my Les Paul out, I just throw it in that Les Paul case. They've got really good flight TSA latches on them. They're molded cases, and they're pretty much bomb proof, and they're not that much money. So let's see, did I miss somebody here? So yeah, I'm not sure. So especially the more streamlined bag, I can't remember what it's called right now. Somebody in the chat can remind me, but they're like real thin, kind of lightweight bag. I would not put those bags are really just for Fender style guitars. I feel like straight headstock bolt neck guitars, because I wouldn't put anything with an angled headstock in there. So let's see here. John has a good question. How do you keep from getting overwhelmed in the recording process and still put out content on a timely fashion? I don't keep from getting overwhelmed. I get overwhelmed a lot. It's just something my wife Tilly and I talk about quite a bit. So yeah, it's a lot. Basically trying to make videos every week and trying to now run the band and do that live stream thing. And it is a lot, and it can get really overwhelming doing 2 podcasts. I'm the type of person that tends to bite off more than they can chew. I get really excited about a new idea, and then I go after that idea without thinking about how it's going to affect the other stuff I'm already working on. When I want to do something, I kind of impulse, go for it. And that's not something I would recommend, honestly. It at times can take away from other things that you have going on. So it's something I'm working on. I do get overwhelmed quite a bit. Like right now, this week, we're going to be traveling next week. And so I've got to get a couple extra videos done. I've got to start working on my next video course pretty soon. It's a lot. But the reality is I wouldn't trade it for anything. I mean, I'm really incredibly lucky that I get to now make my living doing this kind of stuff with guitar in my hand. And, I get to make videos about guitars. I get to play guitar every day. I get to make music with amazing people. I get to write music. I get to be creative every day. And it's because of your support and the channel and buying stuff on the store that we're able to do this. So huge thanks to everybody out there. Jaden in the top chat, what's the best way to start giving lessons? Right now, I would say start with Total Evo, the Mono Stealth. That's the bag I was thinking of. Yes, thank you. The Mono Stealth. Going back for a second, I would not use a Mono Stealth bag with anything other than a Fender guitar or something that has just a straight headstock. Anyways, all right. Starting to teach nowadays, go online, man. There's plenty of platforms online. You can utilize your following on Instagram or Facebook or something. You can advertise that way. You can get your name out there as a teacher, and start teaching over Skype or Zoom. That's a really good way to start doing it. That's how I would do it today. I've taught, I used to teach at a studio, like a lesson studio. And then I worked for a teaching company where I would drive around to students' houses. And for me, both of those were extremely taxing. It wasn't what I was really cut out to do. And so I've found success when I was teaching online. So let's see here. All right. Let me get caught up here. Okay, Logan was saying the hard case is just too heavy to transport from A to B. Well, you can find pretty light hard cases out there. I would say there are hard cases. Like my SKB case, I would say is the same weight as a mono bag. They're about the same weight. Rising Havoc just bought an Epiphone 59 Les Paul Standard. Any amp suggestions? Ooh, that's a good question. There's a lot out there. Depends on what you want to do, and what kind of sounds you're going for. I know the Boss Katana is really popular with a lot of people. I've never played one. Still have never played a Katana. Sorry. If you want to go tube, I would say something from if you're stateside and Fenders are pretty easy to get your hands on. Get something like if you're on a budget, a Fender Blues Junior maybe, or a Princeton Reverb, something that you could get used that's in good condition. Something that there's a good market out there for mods to be done, especially with the Blues Junior. You can really mod a Blues Junior a lot. If you're going for more of a classic rock kind of thing, find a Tweed Deluxe reissue. There's all kinds of stuff. Or you could go digital. You could go with HX Stomp, or you could go with a KEMPER. Really depends on the budget and what you're looking to do. Let's see here. Okay, so I think there's some misconception here. When am I going to do some more videos on the Gretsch that I bought? And I think you're referring to that that Streamliner Gretsch that I played with Dave in the Finding the Budget Electric video. I didn't actually buy that guitar. I don't know if I was unintentionally misleading in that video. I didn't buy that guitar. In fact, last time I went to Atlanta Discount Music a couple weeks ago, it was still there. So it's a really great guitar for the money. At the time, though, I wasn't looking to spend like $400 or $500 on something, so I didn't buy it. But yeah. Matthew, big fan of your show. You're a newer player, and your videos are a huge inspiration. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. San Mateo, California. Man, I turned slow chat on, and this is still flying by. Matt Tucker, you're an older beginner. Should you stick to the onboard? Oh, hold on. You're an older beginner. Should you stick to the onboard effects in your THR-10 or start looking at pedals? Any recommendations on where to start? Well, again, that's a pretty broad subject. So all in all, I would recommend you look into building a pedal board. I mean, it's a really fun part of playing guitar. It's a cool way to start finding your sound, because you can essentially build your own unique set of effects and how they interact together. Dipped in Tone podcast is in the chat. I just got a notification. Apparently the Dipped in Tone episode just dropped. So there we go. So Zach, since you're in here, you can answer this as well. I would say, yeah, start putting together a little pedal board. You can start pretty basic. There's some budget-friendly pedals out there that are really good. I would say the JHS 3 Series now is probably the newest thing out there on the market that is good. Zach was just telling me, actually, he bought a Behringer. It was a $28 Behringer analog delay. And he was texting me last night saying it was actually really good for $28. I mean, come on, I'll probably get one just to try it out. So any recommendations on where to start? Yeah, I would start with a couple of things. Maybe get, so you've got the THR-10. So, maybe get a good overdrive, that MXR Timmy might be a cool option. I have a Paul Cochran Timmy that I really love. Zach just got a Tim, which is really great. And then maybe a good delay would be fun. I would say if you're thinking about time-based effects, you should start with a good delay rather than a reverb, I think, because you can do more with delay than you can with reverb. Wallace, did Van Halen have a big influence on your playing? Any favorite Van Halen riffs? No. Eddie did not really influence my playing at all. To be honest, I've never been a massive Van Halen fan, but Van Halen influenced a lot of players that did influence me. Guys like Pete Thorne, massive Van Halen fans, and John Mayer is massive Van Halen fan, and a lot of modern guitar players who are around today got into guitar because of Van Halen. And I think that's something that's really important to remember. Even if you're not a big fan of somebody like that, they might have influenced somebody that does influence you. And so it's important to remember that. So yeah, I've never been a huge Van Halen fan. I was really sad to see that he passed away. I mean, I think that is equivalent to like Jimi Hendrix passing away. It's a huge deal for the guitar community, huge deal. And it kind of shocked me when it happened, as it did a lot of other people, but it's why I didn't make a video on it. I didn't feel necessarily qualified really to talk about Van Halen. And I felt that there was better people. There's better people out there to cover it than me. So I let them do it. So, if you're just joining us, everyone, got a sale going on, 30% off everything in my store, including the tone chorus, HELIX presets, impulse responses, all that. If you use the code RS30 at checkout. If you're going to ask me a question, you can tag me at Rhett Shull in the chat, or you can throw in a top chat donation so I can see your question here. Hey, BV Ninja's in here. Yeah, good to see you on that pedal show today. Yeah, man. What's a good fuzz? Sam is asking. What's a good fuzz for early ZZ Top like Fandango and Tres Hombres? Honestly, man, shameless plug of my friend Zach at Mythos. I would say the Chupacabra. I have it, but it's like buried way back in the pedal shelf, so I can't get at it right now. The Chupacabra, Zach pretty much voiced to be that sound in a pedal. So if you're looking for that, that's the thing. Let's see here. Yusuf asks, what do you think of the reissue Handwired Vox amps? I think, to be honest, modern Voxes are not my favorite. They're kind of hit or miss. The Handwired stuff I've found to be really harsh and shrill in the top end. I used to have a church gig that I played for years, and they had a Handwired Fawn AC30 head. And that, to me, just I never could really get a sound out of that thing that I dug. It was really brittle and harsh in the top end. That's why I ended up buying the AC20 up here, because that, to me, does the Vox thing way better than a modern Vox. That one's from 2014, so that's one that Joe Morgan built, and it's been great. I know some people have complained that some of the early Morgan stuff is unreliable. I haven't had any issues with mine. Mine's been fantastic. But I don't know, man, the modern Vox stuff, If I was going to buy an AC30 today, I'll tell you exactly what I would go for, and it would be a early 90s Korg era AC30, when Korg used to own Vox, and those were actually built by Marshall. Those Voxes were built by Marshall, and they're fantastic. Beato has one. I've used some on backline gigs before, and they're really good. That would be the one I would go for. With Alnico blues in it. It's got to have blues. I know some people like greenbacks in their AC30s, but not me. I like the Alnico blue. I think that's the AC30 sound, really. Let's see here. What's my favorite Mythos pedal? Nick asks. The Olympus, actually. I know the right answer technically is the Lark, the signature pedal I did with Zach last year, but I really, really like the Olympus Overdrive he just came out with not too long ago. That to me is my favorite one, for sure. Band name. No, we don't have a band name yet. We're working on it. So for the Backstage Live band, I think we're going to be doing 2 more shows this year, a November show and a December show. And then I think we're going to be going into a phase of writing for a while. That's the plan, at least. We're going to be working on some original stuff at the beginning of next year. Don't know what that looks like yet. I don't know if it looks like a series of singles, if it looks like an EP or a full-length album. It's going to depend on how it comes out and how many songs we get done. But yeah, that's definitely on our list. Band name and possibly first original song by the end of the year. We'll see. What's up, Lawrence? Denver Dave, what's more important for getting the Hendrix vibe, the amp or the pedals? I would say the amp is really important. So, Hendrix played a lot of stuff, but he played primarily Marshalls, like Plexis. And the thing about Hendrix's tone, a lot of the time he actually played pretty clean. I know for me, I always used to think about Hendrix's playing and tone as being like fuzz on all the time and the sound of a cranked Marshall and all that stuff. But the reality is, a lot of times he was playing clean. You think about Wind Cries Mary, you think about Angel, you think about a lot of his live records. He had his fuzzes and everything, but he was going for those 100-watt Marshalls because he wanted the headroom. So I think a higher headroom Marshall style amp is really important. I think honestly a Strat is really important. That's why I was playing my black Strat for most of the show, because the Strat neck pickup I think is really important to the Hendrix sound. As far as pedals go, I think a good fuzz is important, a good fuzz face, and I think a good univibe. So I bought that the Tinsley Audio, the Sir Henry vibe. I bought that for the show, and I've been looking for a good univibe for a really long time. And my buddy Zapata recommended the Sir Henry, and so I got in touch with Dustin over there and bought one, and it's amazing. And it does that Hendrix, like the Band of Gypsies era univibe thing, really, really well. I love it. Let's see here. Tom, what's up, man? What's my favorite LPD pedal? You love the Luster and the 87. Man, the Dojo Paraboost, the one that he just did with Dave Honorato. That is a great utility pedal, man. It's basically Lawrence is in the chat here, and he can explain it. But it's essentially a boost with a really, really surgical, sculptable EQ, especially for the mid-range. You can really dial in the mid-range, what frequency you want to boost and how much. Those kind of pedals are really important, I think, for utility pedals. You can put them before overdrives and push overdrives or distortions harder. You can put it after an overdrive and use it as a boost. You can use it to tone shape an amp really well. Use it as an always on thing. You can use it as a compensator. If you've got two guitars that have completely different outputs in the pickups, if you've got maybe I used to have this for a long time with an old Strat I used to have in my 335. The Strat pickups were way lower output than my 335, so I would always have to, on a gig, if I switched to my Strat, had to have a boost on my board that would compensate for the lower output of the pickups. So, yeah, I would say the Para Boost for sure. Drew, you're about to graduate college and looking to break into the session production game in Atlanta. What advice do you have for a young buck? Well, be as self-sufficient as you can, meaning learn how to write, learn how to produce, learn how to mix, learn how to master, basically be able to do everything yourself so you're not relying on anyone else to do it for you. Also, the more skills that you have like that, the more you are, the more marketable you are to other producers, to other players, to other artists. If you can do all that stuff, if you can show up essentially as like a one-man operation and kind of do everything and do it well, I think that'll serve you well in the future. It'll also open you up to other opportunities that come down the line. Like, hey, can you come engineer this record? Or hey, can you mix this EP for this artist? Or hey, can you whatever? You know, the thing that's going on here in Atlanta right now that's huge is the film industry. Obviously, there's a ton of movies and TV shows being shot, and I think that's a really good market to look into. I know some guys that run what's called playback on film sets. So if you think about a movie, right, and let's say there's a scene in the movie where they're in a club, and so they've got people in the background, they're all dancing, and there's all lights, but then there's two characters, and they're sharing dialogue in the scene. Well, when you're shooting that scene, you can't actually have all the music and everything playing in the background, because then you couldn't hear the dialogue. So the way they do that on music set or on movie sets is they have the club, they have all the extras there, and then they have a playback operator come with a little cart, and on their cart is a laptop with a Pro Tools session and an interface and everything pulled up, and they have a PA. They bring their own PA out, and what they're doing essentially is pumping like a low frequency signal generator. It almost sounds like an 808 kick. It's just and it's giving people the tempo to act like they're dancing along. And what happens is later the boom mics and the close mics on the actors, the sound editors can just high pass that low frequency out of there. So you get the clean dialogue and it looks like everyone's dancing to something in the background, and then the editors later will drop in the background music and everything. So that's actually a pretty good paying gig. I know some guys that were engineers here in Atlanta at some pretty big studios that now their main gig is working on film sets, running playback for TV shows and movies and all that kind of stuff. It's actually really cool. It's a really cool gig. High pressure gig for sure, but really cool. Let's see here. Ryan says, any advice on how to grow a channel, a guitar channel? Yes. First of all, and I think this goes for anything that you're trying to grow online, any kind of social media platform, whether it's Instagram or YouTube. I don't really think Facebook is worth your time. First of all, is consistency. So sticking to a consistent upload schedule. You need to be uploading stuff every week. You probably need to be uploading stuff multiple times a week if you can make it happen. The second thing is, and this is actually more important than or as important as the consistency thing, is high quality content. And what I mean by that is not like super high quality video and super high quality audio. I mean, that stuff definitely helps. But what I mean is, what are you actually delivering? What are you saying? Are people learning something from your videos? Are they getting entertained by your videos? Or ideally, is it both? And can you deliver that stuff consistently? And then through that, you'll do things like find your style, find your voice on YouTube, figure out what works well, what doesn't work well. I'm constantly doing that. I'm constantly making videos that I think will do well and finding out that they don't, or making a video and all of a sudden it does really well. I mean, it's a constant learning process, but consistency and quality is key, I think. Let's see here. Any schools on the East Coast you would recommend for becoming an audio/studio engineer? Yeah. So my school that I went to, AIM, they do audio and engineering stuff. They always have, which is cool. But honestly, man, I would say if there's a studio around you that you can go intern at, that's exactly what I would do. Go be an intern for a while. You know, go work at a studio, even if it's a relatively small studio. If it's a professional studio that is bringing in clients and working with them on a consistent basis, I think that is probably the best education you can get, because it's real. It's what you're it's on the job training, basically. Schools are great. If you have to have that degree, then yeah, there's plenty of colleges, you know, MTSU and Berkeley, and, you know, I don't know if NEC has a recording engineering program, but you're going to learn the fundamentals, you're going to learn the science, you're going to learn all that stuff there. But the only thing that's really going to teach you how to actually work in a studio and be a professional is working in a studio, and gaining that knowledge there. So if you find a place, find several places, and be willing to sweep floors, take out trash, clean the bathrooms, go get coffee, put in the groundwork so that you can actually spend time there and just be in the room while people are working on sessions and recording stuff. That is incredibly valuable. Let's see here. Bathurst is saying, hypothetically, you have enough money saved for a KEMPER/HELIX rig. It would take about a quarter more of the money you have saved for an amp/pedal board setup. Which would you prefer? I would go HELIX. If that's where you're at, if you're looking at KEMPER versus HELIX, I would go HELIX. I like the KEMPER a lot, but the reality is I actually don't use my KEMPER much anymore. If I'm using a modeler, I'm going to go for the HELIX or the Axe FX over the KEMPER. I would love to see KEMPER update. I'd love to see them come out with the next thing, whatever that is. You know, people have been speculating on it and talking about it for years, but I don't know, man. It doesn't, you know, they came out with the KEMPER, the floor model KEMPER. Then they came out with the KEMPER cabinet, the KEMPER cone. I don't know. I just kind of, I feel like they need to do a KEMPER 2.0. How do you transition to metal down the line? I'm not a metal guy. I would say just listen to it and play what you're listening to. No, I did not sell my Morgan amp. It's right there. Am I still happy with the divided by 13? Yes, the RSA 23. I am really happy with it. I'm looking forward to being able to use that amp live one day. I think that's really where it shines. It will be as a live amp. So obviously that's not happening now. It's not happening really anytime soon, but yeah, I'm really excited. Ideally, if I could have my way live, if it was like a headlining tour that I was able to play, I would bring the FTR and the RSA and put them together. Maybe as a stereo rig, maybe not, but I'd want to have both of those amps together on the road for sure. Once again, if you're just joining us, 30% off everything in my store. That's the tone course, the HELIX presets, the KEMPER profiles, everything. If you use the code RS30 at checkout. If you want to send me a question, you can jump in the top chat here, like Stark Films just did, or you can @ me at Rhett Shull so I can see it. And yeah, Stark Film says, what are my desert island / favorite 3 overdrive pedals of all time? The Timmy, the Greer Lightspeed. Oof. And I might have to say this Polaris right here. I just bought this one a couple weeks ago. This is the Spaceman Polaris Resonant Overdrive. It wasn't cheap. And they only made, they only made 111 of them. I don't know if you can see that there. So this is 76 of 111. But this is really cool. I think it's like a blues breaker circuit, but it's got some extra sauce going on. So you have this this filter here, and then this initial control, and then you've got a depth switch, and then a bass boost and a bass cut right here. But essentially, this is like a 4-pole resonant filter like you'd find on a synth. And it really allows you to dial in the mid-range in a really cool way. I dig this thing a lot. If you can find one for a decent price, I'd recommend picking it up. Yeah. What are my thoughts on the new Jhs line? So I think it's good. I think it's really good for the price. They're not mind-blowingly good sounding pedals. I think there's this sort of conception out there that they are like as good sounding as the main Jhs pedals just for $99, and that's not the case. And I don't think they were trying to do that. I think what they're trying to do and what they did was take some basic circuits that are really common, get them into a pretty affordable production system. You know, I think they're having their boards made. Zach and I were talking about this on the Dipped in Tone pod, I think last week. They were having, I think they're having their boards made overseas and then assembled in the States just to kind of crank the production out so that you can get a good, solid, reliable pedal, a good circuit for $99. I think that's great. Now, again, things like the overdrive, the delay, the reverb, it sounds good. You're not going to have the feature set that you do with a more expensive pedal. You're not going to have, I think, with the overall tone and response of a more expensive pedal. But again, it's $99. You know, I think the modulation ones are particularly good options because, you know, a chorus, for example, is something that you might not want to spend $300 on, like a decent or a really good analog chorus. You know, $300 is a lot of money for a pedal, or $200 or whatever it is. But if you want to try a good analog chorus out, spend $99 on one and see how it works in your rig. You know, I think very few people out there need like the really great juicy analog kind of chorus or flanger thing, whatever you got. You know. Devin Daughtry, with an HX Stomp, would you route a reverb source through the input with the other pedals or through its effects loop into a block? You're going direct and amps. It's a good question. I'd probably put it in the loop. When I built my little mini HX board last year, I put the specular Tempest in the loop, and that was really cool because I could put it in depending on what setup I was using or what sounds I was using. I could put that loop in different places, that loop block in different places. It's one of the cool things about the Stomp and the Helix and the Axe effects, for example. You can put that effects loop wherever you want. So that's what I would do. I'd put it in the loop. You could run it stereo back in. Where's my Stomp? It's around here somewhere. I was about to start working on some presets for it again. I think it's in a drawer. Yeah, so you can get your stereo delay repeats back in, which is really cool. If you're running into the front of the amp, then you could treat it like you're just on a regular pedal board, or you could do some kind of interesting 4-cable routing to get it into the effects loop of an amplifier. If you're using the Stomp as an amp itself, as a rig itself, then you could do, your amp block, then the delay block, and then an IR or a cab block. So then it's essentially acting like an effects loop of an amp, like the delay is sitting in the effects loop. Or you could put amp block, cab block, then your delay. So then it's almost like a studio delay, right? Where you have your complete guitar sound, your complete dry guitar sound coming into your delay sound, and treating it like a studio delay, which is really cool. Do I have a favorite Univibe type pedal? Yeah, it'd be the one I just bought. The Tinsley Audio Sir Henry vibe. Why'd I use a bender instead of a fuzz face on the live stream? Because I wanted to. Because I really like that tone bender, Mark 1. Let's see here. What do I think about the Jhs Color Box? I think it's great. It's another great utility pedal. So I have a V1 color box that I've had for years and years. If you are interested in like recording or production, it's great because you can put a vocal mic through it. It can be a bass DI. You can put an acoustic guitar through it and use it as a DI. Any standalone mono signal that you'd want to use a good like Neve style preamp for, that's essentially what it is. It's also an EQ, so you can use it as a tone shaping pedal. You can put it in front of an amp and use it as a boost or an overdrive or a fuzz. You can use it as an always on tone shaping EQ thing. They're incredibly versatile. I'd like them a lot. And because there's an actual transformer in there, the distortion and breakup you're getting, I think, is a little bit more organic sounding. So I really like it. Blaze, how would you stack a KTR, Hudson Broadcast, and Bonsai into an AC-15 with a Reverend jet stream? Okay, so KTR, Hudson Broadcast, and Bonsai. I would experiment. So the first thing I would try is Bonsai, Hudson Broadcast, KTR. And I'd use the KTR as a clean boost. So you would essentially have... Let me flip that. I would go Hudson Broadcast, Tube Screamer, then the KTR. Hudson Broadcast I would use as my light gain, sort of preamp overdrive. The Tube Screamer I would have, the Bonsai I'd have as my medium gain setting. Then when you stack those two together, that gives you your like saturated lead tone, and then you can hit the KTR to boost the front end of the amp a little harder. J.R. Harrison, any suggestions on second microphone to mic an amp? You already have a 57, but you think you want a large diaphragm condenser? I would go with a ribbon mic before a condenser. I would say the Royer R110, which is their $500 ribbon option, or I would say the Cascade Fathead, or if you can afford it, the AEA I'm forgetting the exact model, but AEA makes a really great ribbon. It's about that big, and it's amazing for guitars. So I would say a good ribbon mic next. If you can afford an R121, that's like the standard. A 57 and a 121 is like my favorite mic combination. But the 121's a $1,300 microphone. It's pretty expensive. Cyrus is asking, best beginner, easy to use DAW for rock, blues, acoustic, and MIDI instruments. Singer, guitarist, all alone in a room, no drum skills at all. All right. Well, if you're on a Mac, the stock answer would be Logic, especially if you've experienced GarageBand at all. If you have any experience with GarageBand, Logic is a good transition to make. I'm using Luna now for everything with UA, and I really like it. We're using Luna for the live streams. I'm using it for all my video production stuff now. I really, really dig it. It works well with the UA hardware. The Neve summing and tape emulation works really well. And it functions like Pro Tools. So if you're a Pro Tools user, it's a pretty easy transition to make. However, if you're starting off and you have no experience with a DAW, you could also check out Ableton. Now, I've never used Ableton, but I have a lot of friends that are Ableton users and swear by it. And if you're doing more pop production stuff, I think Ableton is the way to go for sure. But with that said, I'm no expert on Ableton. I've never used it. I have a lot of friends that have it and use it, but I came up on Pro Tools and Logic. But my downside with Logic is I just don't like the way that it functions. I don't like the way you edit in Logic. I don't like the way you comp in Logic. It just has never really made sense to me. So I prefer like Pro Tools and now Luna because of that. How do I get drums for my YouTube video tracks? A few different ways. Sometimes I'll program them. I use Superior Drummer 3, and I'll program drums with that. Or if I'm doing a little more like run and gun, faster production, and I don't want to spend the time programming drums, I'll use Splice. I'll go on splice.com and download breakbeats, or loops that way. I also have a library of loops from That Sound drums that I've been buying and collecting for years now. Really like the Aaron Sterling pack, the Jekyll and Hyde pack from Paul Mabry is really good. Yeah. Never played a VHT amp, Jeremy. I've heard good things, but I've never played one. So, let's see here. Should you buy a 335 or wait to see Dennis's new prototypes? I can't tell you. I love 335s. I also love what Dennis Fano does. So depends on how quickly you need a 335 or a hollow body guitar, a semi-hollow. What are some things I prefer with Luna over Pro Tools? So the main things are the Neve summing and the tape emulation on every single track that you can do. Plus, if you're a UA user and you have the hardware and you have their plugins and stuff, it integrates really well. But really, it's the Neve summing and the tape emulation. It's really good. So early on in the Backstage Live process, when Andy and I were kind of working out our system down here, we had a moment with Luna because it's not designed to be a live DAW. It's not designed to be a live mixing platform. So we were kind of pushing Luna in a way in which it wasn't really designed to be pushed, and we were kind of finding the limits of it as a program. And so we were thinking, okay, well, why don't we, what would it look like for us to switch back to Pro Tools? because we both have a lot of experience with Pro Tools. We know its strengths and its weaknesses. And at the time, we were just learning Luna. So we would encounter a problem with Luna and then just kind of have to figure it out as we went. But what we found was we played back some audio that we had recorded in the live room. And we had Neve summing on all the buses, and we had tape emulation on all the tracks in the master bus. And we were like, okay, well, let's try this. Let's listen to what we just recorded, and let's turn off the Neve summing and the tape emulation. And when we did that, the mix just, it lost a lot of the vibe and a lot of the feel that we're able to get, that we're looking for. So that's really it. It's the Neve summing. There's some things that I wish they would do. So I wish they would include support for hardware controllers. Right now, you can't use any kind of hardware controller control surface with Luna. Hopefully that's coming very soon. And then there's things like templates. Like there's no way to save a session template right now. So there's some things they need to work on. But overall, it sounds really good. Sounds really, really good. What's my favorite era of Fender? Tweed, black, or brown face, or silver? Definitely not silver. Not a silver face fan. I'd probably have to say I'd go tweed. A good tweed deluxe is my thing. I think it's one of the most versatile amp designs ever. So yeah. Let's see here. Scroll back up. Could I make a video about affordable overdrives around $100? Possibly. I think the JHS 3 series overdrive is a good one to check out. I think, anything on the used market that you can find, a used tube screamer. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff out there around the $100 mark. The thing with overdrives, and the reason I'm a little bit hesitant to make a video like that, is there's so many overdrives out there, and it's so subjective. Like, what are you looking for specifically in an overdrive? What kind of guitar are you using? What kind of amp are you using? For me to make a video like that, it wouldn't be comprehensive, and it would only apply to a very small number of people. So what I would tell you to do is go on the used market, go on Reverb with your $100, and do a little research. Are you looking for a tube screamer circuit? Are you looking for a blues breaker circuit? Something in that vein, and find something used in the $100 range, buy it, and try it out. Try it for a while, a few weeks, and you're bored. And if you don't like it, then sell it. That's what I did for years with my pedals. I need an overdrive, or I want a second overdrive. I want a good medium gain second overdrive that's going to stack well with this. Let me try this. And I'd buy something, and I'd get it, and I'd play it through my rig and think, okay, this is going to work or this isn't going to work. And if it wasn't going to work, I'd turn around and sell it, and I'd get something else. And I would just constantly flip that stuff until I found what I really liked. All right, we'll take a couple more questions here, then we'll sign off. What would you recommend as a home practice tube amp? You have an AC30 and love it, but it's just too loud for me nowadays. You've got an HX Stomp to use instead, but you just don't like the sound. So the thing on the Stomp, if you're using the stock presets, delete all of those. Delete the stock presets. I think they're all garbage, and get some third-party presets. Shameless plug, you can get my presets for 30% off right now if you use code RS30 at checkout. But no, there's good stuff from like Tone Junkies out there. I think Michael Britt has some good stuff out there for HX Stomp. There's a lot of good people that are making really good sounding Stomp presets. So that's what I would tell you to do. In terms of a home tube amp, if you like the AC30 and you want something for home use, check out the AC10. I think it's a great sounding little tube amp. I agree, an AC30 is way too loud for home use. AC30s are too loud for most clubs, I've found. So yeah, I would say that's that's too much amp if you're playing at home. Devin in the top chat, one more HX. You've heard the compression pedal in the chain is a plus for feel with sims and IRs. Already running a GE7 and Nordvang 83. So I pretty much never run compressors in front of my amps, with a few exceptions. I was running a Nile on the Backstage live show this weekend, the Vertex Nile. But that's because I was going for a really specific thing that required a compressor in front. With a modeler, I pretty much always put a compressor at the very end of the chain, and that's essentially emulating what you would do in a recording situation. When you're recording, I always like to have a compressor in the signal chain from the microphone, whether it's like an 1176 or a Distressor or something like that. So you're still able to keep the dynamic response of the guitar and the amp together, where you can lighten up your playing or you can dig in a little harder. But the compressor is sort of evening everything out and helping the guitar sit in the mix a little better. The thing you have to keep in mind with modelers is a modeler is not, most of the time, not trying to emulate the amp in the room sound. A modeler is trying to emulate the amp mic'd up in a studio situation, a recording situation where your amp is close mic'd and you've got, that kind of sound. So what I've found success with is putting an EQ block and a compressor block at the very end of the chain for your modeler, and that essentially will emulate a little bit more the signal flow you would get in a studio. So yeah, experiment with that. In the HX Stomp, I usually use the LA Studio comp at the end or the Deluxe comp at the end, and I think those sound really good. Let's see here. Joel's asking, what would you say is the minimum budget range for a decent first electric guitar and amp coming from Acoustic? There's a lot of good stuff out there in the budget realm. I would say if you could spend So on the podcast this week, on the Dipped in Tone podcast, Zach and I actually talked about that. Like, what would, we use the $1,000 for guitar, amp, and pedal, like a full rig for $1,000. I think you could really get that down to $500 to $750, depending on what you were looking for. So yeah, I would say, save up $500, $700 and see what you can get. Buy used if you can. You can get a little more for your money that way. Yeah. Let's see here. All right, everyone. I think we're going to sign off once again. Thanks everyone for hanging out. This was kind of a last minute sort of impulse thing today. Just felt like going live and answering some questions. You can get 30% off everything in the store. Use the code RS30 at checkout. Link is in the description and in the chat. Thanks everyone for hanging out. We will have the next Backstage live show date very soon. That'll be in November. We got 2 more shows for season 1, November and December. So be sure to check those out whenever we get to them. And yeah, I will see y'all real soon on a new video coming later this week. Thanks, guys.